Rain drizzled against the windows of the Velvet Bean, a quaint coffee shop nestled in the heart of Seattle's historic district. I sat hunched over my laptop at a corner table, my fingers hovering above the keyboard as I stared absently at the stack of unpaid bills accumulating on my phone screen. At 28, life had become a series of closed doors and mounting pressures. My dream of becoming a published novelist felt increasingly distant as reality pressed down on my shoulders. I had moved to Seattle 3 years ago, leaving behind the comfort of my small hometown in Ohio, chasing whispers of opportunity and inspiration. Instead, I found myself working double shifts at a local bookstore while trying to carve out time for my writing. Today had been particularly disheartening. Another rejection email from a literary agent, coupled with an unexpected car repair bill that threatened to drain my already depleted savings. As I absently stirred my lukewarm coffee, a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere caught my attention. That's when I noticed him, Adrian, seated a few tables away, sipping an espresso. His presence was impossible to ignore. Everything about him screamed wealth and authority, from his perfectly tailored navy suit to the subtle gleam of his platinum wristwatch. His dark hair was neatly styled, and his piercing blue eyes seemed to scan the room with quiet confidence. I didn't think he'd noticed me until our eyes met across the room. There was something magnetic in his expression, a self-assuredness that made my heart race. I quickly looked away, pretending to focus on the sketches in my notebook, but I could feel his gaze lingering on me. A few moments later, a server approached my table and handed me a card. "The gentleman over there would like to speak with you," she said, gesturing toward Adrian. I hesitated, unsure of what this could mean. My curiosity got the better of me, and I walked over, my heart pounding in my chest. Adrian greeted me with a warm yet commanding smile. "Please sit," he said, his deep voice smooth and inviting. As I settled into the chair across from him, we exchanged pleasantries. Then, without warning, he leaned in and said, "I have a proposition for you." My eyebrows shot up in surprise. "What kind of proposition?" I asked cautiously. Adrian's expression remained steady. "I'm hosting a private event this weekend and need a companion, someone who can hold intelligent conversation and blend in with the crowd. I'll pay you handsomely for your time." The offer seemed too good to be true. "Why me?" I asked skeptically. He smiled again, this time with a hint of mischief. "Because you caught my eye. You have a presence about you, something unique. And I always trust my instincts." I didn't know what to say. On one hand, the idea of being someone's paid companion felt odd. On the other hand, I desperately needed the money. "How much are we talking about?" I finally asked. Adrian leaned back, studying me for a moment before responding. $10,000 for one evening. I nearly choked on my coffee. That kind of money could solve so many of my problems. "And what exactly would this involve?" I asked cautiously. "Just your company," he said, his tone serious. "You'll accompany me to the event, and that's all. No expectations beyond that." Something in his voice told me he was being genuine, though I still felt a pang of uncertainty. I glanced down at my notebook, at the sketches I'd been working on in hopes of someday making a name for myself in the art world. $10,000 could buy me time to focus on my dreams without worrying about rent or bills. "All right," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do it." Adrian's smile widened. "Good. My driver will pick you up at 7 on Saturday." Or something formal. As I left the cafe that evening, my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Who was this man really? Why had he chosen me? And most importantly, what had I just gotten myself into? Saturday arrived faster than I expected. The nerves that had started as a faint buzz in the back of my mind had now grown into a storm of anxiety. What was I about to step into? I didn't know much about Adrian beyond his name and the undeniable magnetism he carried. I tried to calm myself as I adjusted the tie on my suit. a suit I'd borrowed from a friend since I couldn't afford one that fit my size perfectly. At exactly 7 p.m., a sleek black car pulled up in front of my apartment building. The driver, a polite older man dressed impeccably in a dark uniform, opened the door for me. The interior of the car was as luxurious as I'd imagined. Leather seats, soft lighting, and a faint, clean scent that I couldn't quite place. As we sped through the city, I couldn't help but ask myself why Adrian had chosen me for this. Was it really just my unique presence, or was there something more he saw in me? My thoughts were interrupted when the car pulled into the driveway of an enormous estate, its modern architecture gleaming under the Seattle skyline. I stepped out of the car, my breath catching as I took in the scene. The mansion was stunning, with glass walls, infinity pools, and an array of exotic cars parked in the driveway. Guests were already arriving, their expensive clothing and effortless poise making me feel like I didn't belong. But I didn't have time to dwell on it. Adrian was waiting. I was escorted inside, and there he was, standing by a grand staircase, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit that exuded power and elegance. He saw me immediately, his eyes lighting up as he walked over. "You look perfect," he said, his gaze sweeping over me appreciatively. "I knew you'd fit in." "Thanks," I replied, my voice a little unsteady. "This place is incredible." He smiled. "I'm glad you think so. Tonight's important. Just stay by my side, and everything will be fine." And that's exactly what I did. Adrian introduced me to his associates, each one more intimidating than the last. They were politicians, CEOs, and socialites, people I'd never dreamed of interacting with. Yet Adrian made sure I felt comfortable, his hand occasionally brushing mine as he guided me through the crowd. It was subtle, but it sent a jolt through me every time. As the evening went on, I began to notice something. Adrian wasn't just using me as a companion for the event. There was something in the way he looked at me, the way his hand lingered on my back, the way he leaned in just a little too close when he spoke. It wasn't just professional, it was personal. At one point, we found ourselves alone on the balcony, the city lights of Seattle twinkling in the distance. Adrian leaned against the railing, his expression softer than I'd seen all night. "I have to admit," he said, his voice low, "I didn't bring you here just for show." I turned to him, my heart pounding. "Then why did you?" He hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "Because I wanted to know you. There's something about you, something I can't quite explain. You're not like anyone else I've met." I didn't know what to say. His words disarmed me, breaking through the walls I'd built around myself. "I'm just me," I said, my voice barely audible. "And that's exactly what makes you special," he replied, his gaze locking with mine. The tension between us was palpable, the space between us shrinking. And then, before I could even process what was happening, Adrian leaned in. His lips brushed against mine, soft and tentative, as if asking for permission. I didn't pull away. The kiss deepened, and for that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the event, not the people inside, not the risks of what we were doing. It was just us, suspended in a moment that felt like it was meant to be. When we finally pulled apart, Adrian smiled. "You're full of surprises," he said softly. "So are you." I replied, my heart still racing. The night wasn't over. But I knew then that this was just the beginning of something much more complicated and much more meaningful than either of us had anticipated. The days following the event at Adrian's estate were surreal. I couldn't stop replaying that kiss on the balcony. The way his lips felt against mine, the way his presence overwhelmed me in the best way possible. It was as if he had peeled back a layer of my life I didn't even know existed, revealing something raw and exhilarating. But with that excitement came fear. Fear of what this connection could mean. Fear of what I had gotten myself into. I hadn't heard from Adrian since that night. I told myself not to overthink it. He was a wealthy and powerful man, likely busy with a life far more complicated than mine. But as the days turned into a week, I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that I had been nothing more than a fleeting distraction for him. I wanted to believe that kiss had meant something, but doubt began to creep in. Then one evening, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Adrian. "Can we meet? My driver will pick you up in an hour." My heart raced as I stared at the message. There was no explanation, no indication of what he wanted to talk about, but I couldn't say no. I replied with a simple yes. Exactly an hour later, the sleek black car pulled up in front of my building. The driver greeted me with the same polite nod as before, and I slid in the back seat, my nerves on edge. The drive was silent, the city lights of Seattle reflecting off the car windows as we moved through the bustling streets. When we arrived, I was surprised to see that Adrian hadn't brought me back to his estate. Instead, we stopped at a smaller, more understated villa on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by tall walls and lush greenery. Adrian was waiting for me just inside the doorway, dressed casually in a white linen shirt and slacks. His usual air of formality was replaced with something softer. He smiled when he saw me, but there was a tension in his expression, as if he was carrying a weight he hadn't yet shared. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice warm but serious. "Of course," I replied, trying to steady my nerves. "What's going on?" I asked as he gestured for me to follow him. He led me through the villa to a cozy sitting area with large windows overlooking a serene courtyard. The room was bathed in soft golden light from the lamps, and a faint scent of jasmine lingered in the air. Adrian motioned for me to sit, and I did, my heart pounding in my chest. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you," he began, sitting across from me. His dark eyes met mine, filled with an honesty that caught me off guard. That night on the balcony, it wasn't just a moment for me. It meant something. "You mean something." I felt a lump form in my throat, my emotions a whirlwind. "Then why did you disappear?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "Why didn't I hear from you?" He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "Because I'm scared. I've spent my entire life building this image, this life of control and power. But with you, I feel something I can't control, something that terrifies me because it's real." His words hit me like a wave. I had felt the same fear, the same uncertainty about what was happening between us. But hearing him say it made it feel real, like we were both standing on the edge of something neither of us fully understood. "I'm scared too," I said quietly. "But that doesn't mean we should run from it." Adrian leaned forward, his eyes searching mine. "I don't want to run," he said softly. "I want to see where this goes. But we have to be careful. No one can know about this. Not yet." I nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. "I can handle that," I said, "as long as you're honest with me." "I will be," he promised, reaching across the table to take my hand in his. The touch was gentle, but sent a surge of warmth through me. For the first time since that night at the estate, I felt a sense of clarity. This wasn't going to be easy, but it was worth it. Adrian and I had found something rare, something worth fighting for, even if it meant keeping it in the shadows for now. The days that followed were filled with a delicate balancing act as Adrian and I navigated the boundaries of our newfound connection. Every moment we spent together was stolen. A whispered conversation in the car, a fleeting touch when no one was looking, a shared glance across a crowded room. It was intoxicating, yet it carried the constant weight of secrecy. Adrian was a man who commanded respect wherever he went. His life was one of high stakes and public scrutiny, and he made it clear that the world he lived in wouldn't easily accept what we shared. I understood that, but it didn't make it any easier. Every time we were apart, I felt the ache of wanting to be close to him, to not have to hide what we were from the world. One evening, Adrian invited me to his villa again. This time it felt different. The tension between us had shifted, as if we were both finally accepting the gravity of what we had started. When I arrived, he was waiting for me in the courtyard, dressed in a tailored white shirt and dark trousers, his sleeves rolled up to reveal his strong forearms. The sight of him took my breath away, as it always did. "You're here," he said, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I'm here," I replied, feeling the same rush of warmth I always felt in his presence. We sat outside under the stars, the air filled with the faint scent of jasmine and the distant hum of the city. Adrian poured us glasses of wine, and we talked about everything and nothing, his work, my art, our dreams. For a while, it felt like we were the only two people in the world. But as the night went on, the conversation turned serious. Adrian set his glass down and looked at me, his expression unreadable. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice low. My heart sank. "What is it?" I asked, bracing myself for whatever was coming. He hesitated, as if struggling to find the right words. "In my world, appearances are everything," he said finally. "I have responsibilities, obligations, expectations. There are people who would see what we have as a betrayal, as a weakness. If this ever got out, it would ruin you." I finished for him, my chest tightening. "I know." He nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and determination. "I don't want to hurt you," he said, "but I need you to understand the risks you're taking by being with me." "I know the risks," I said, my voice firm, "and I'm willing to take them. But I need to know that you are too." Adrian reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "I am," he said. "I don't know where this will lead, but I know I don't want to lose you." His words eased some of my fears, but they didn't erase them completely. I knew this was only the beginning of the challenges we would face. But in that moment, it didn't matter. All that mattered was that we were in this together. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of quiet moments and stolen kisses. When it was time for me to leave, Adrian walked me to the door, his hand lingering on mine as if he didn't want to let me go. "Be careful," he said softly, his eyes searching mine. "You too," I replied, my heart heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. As I walked to the car, I couldn't help but glance back. Adrian was still standing in the doorway, watching me with an intensity that made my chest ache. In that moment, I realized just how much I had fallen for him, how much I was willing to risk for him. The drive home was quiet, the city lights blurring past the window as I tried to process everything. I didn't know what the future held for us, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't ready to give him up. The days continued to slip by, and Adrian and I became masters of secrecy. Each stolen moment was precious, but the strain of living in the shadows began to take its toll. I found myself longing for more time, more openness, more of him. Yet I knew the world Adrian lived in made those things impossible. It was late one evening when he called me unexpectedly. His voice was soft, but carried an edge of urgency. "I need to see you," he said. "Come to the villa." Something in his tone made my heart race. "I'll be there soon," I replied, grabbing my jacket and heading out the door. The drive felt longer than usual, the anticipation building with every passing moment. When I arrived, Adrian was waiting for me at the entrance, dressed casually in a white linen shirt and dark trousers. His face was tense, his usual calm demeanor replaced with a flicker of unease. "What's going on?" I asked, stepping inside. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he led me to the living room, where the soft glow of the lamps cast warm shadows across the space. He poured 2 glasses of water and handed me one before sitting down beside me on the plush sofa. "I had a meeting today," he began, his voice low. "A conversation with someone who knows about us." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean? Who?" "A business associate," he said, running a hand through his hair. "He saw us together a few nights ago, saw the way I looked at you. He didn't say anything directly, but it was clear he had suspicions." Panic bubbled in my chest. "What does that mean for us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Adrian reached out, his hand covering mine. "It means we have to be even more careful. My position, my reputation, it's all fragile. But I'm not going to let fear dictate my life. I won't let it dictate us." His words were both reassuring and terrifying. The risks we were taking were real, and the consequences could be devastating. But hearing his determination gave me strength. "I don't want to lose you," I said, my throat tightening. "You won't," he replied firmly. "But I need you to trust me, even when it feels impossible." I nodded, my chest aching with the weight of everything we couldn't say out loud. "I do trust you," I said, "but I don't know how long I can do this. Hiding, pretending like we're nothing when we're everything." Adrian's grip on my hand tightened. "You're not nothing to me," he said, his voice cracking. "You're the only thing that feels real in a world full of lies and expectations. And I'll fight to keep us no matter what it takes." The intensity of his words hit me like a wave. For the first time, I saw just how much he was risking for this, for us. And in that moment, I realized I was willing to do the same. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of our situation hanging heavy in the air. But then Adrian turned to me, his dark eyes softening. "There's something I want to give you," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small, intricately designed pendant on a thin chain. The gold glinted in the light as he held it out to me. "It's a family heirloom," he explained, "something I've always carried with me. I want you to have it." I hesitated, overwhelmed by the gesture. "Adrian, I can't." "You can," he interrupted. "It's a promise, a reminder that no matter how hard things get, I'm with you." Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes as I took the pendant, the weight of it settling in my palm. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. Adrian leaned closer, his forehead resting against mine. "We'll figure this out," he murmured. "Together." As his lips brushed against mine, the world fell away once again, leaving only us in that moment. I believed him. We would face whatever came our way, side by side. The air felt lighter as I woke up the next morning. Adrian had insisted I stay at the villa overnight, something we rarely risked. But after the intensity of last night, neither of us could bear to part ways. The first rays of sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting golden hues across the room. I turned to find Adrian already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed lost in thought. "Morning," I said softly, my voice still heavy with sleep. He turned to me, his expression softening into a smile. "Good morning," he replied, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from my face. "Did you sleep well?" "Well enough," I said, sitting up, "but I can tell something's on your mind." Adrian sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I've been thinking," he admitted, "about us, about what comes next." My heart skipped a beat. The uncertainty in his voice made my chest tighten, but I waited for him to continue. "I can't keep living like this," he said, "constantly looking over my shoulder, hiding the most important part of my life. It's exhausting, and it's not fair to you." I reached out, placing a hand on his. "I knew what I was signing up for," I said. "But no," he interrupted, his voice firm. "What's too much is pretending I don't love you. I've spent my entire life doing what others expect of me, building a life that looks perfect from the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Meeting you changed that. You changed that." The words hung in the air, each one landing with the weight of his conviction. I felt my throat tighten as tears threatened to spill. "What are you saying?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm saying I'm done hiding," Adrian said, his dark eyes locking with mine. "I'm not going to let fear dictate our lives anymore. I want us to be together, truly together. The enormity of his words left me speechless. For so long, our relationship had existed in the shadows, a beautiful secret we protected fiercely. But now, Adrian was willing to bring it into the light, despite the risks. Are you sure? I asked, my voice trembling. Once we take this step, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything, he said. But I can't do it without you. A surge of emotion washed over me as I leaned forward, wrapping my arms around him. I'm with you, I said, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. I've always been with you. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of quiet conversations and shared laughter. We talked about what the future would look like, how we would navigate the challenges ahead, how we would support each other through whatever came our way. It wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, it felt possible. Later that evening, as the sun set over the Seattle skyline, Adrian and I stood on the villa's balcony, watching the city come alive with lights. He took my hand in his grip strong and steady. This is just the beginning, he said, his voice filled with determination. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. I nodded, my heart swelling with a mixture of love and hope. Together, I echoed, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we had already found something worth fighting for. As the city buzzed with life below us, I realized how far we'd come, from a chance meeting to a love that defied expectations and fear. It wasn't perfect, and it never would be, but it was ours. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I believed we could truly have it all. In the end, love is about courage. The courage to face the world, to break free from fear, and to choose each other despite the odds. Adrian and I proved that even in the shadows, something beautiful can grow. And when brought into the light, it shines even brighter. Have you ever felt torn between fear and love? What would you risk for something real? Let this story inspire you to embrace your truth and live authentically. Together, let's celebrate love in all its forms.